Good afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners work session for Wednesday, January 24th, 2024. It's 1:03 p.m. My name is Ty Mentor, Chair of the Board. We also have Commissioner Carolina Mejia and Commissioner Gary Edwards. Commissioner Fournier is excused at another meeting, and Commissioner Klaus is also excused. So we have a full hour if we need it. The topic is TRPC Rural Transit Program Update. It's an informational session for public virtual attendance. You may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. Also with us is Interim County Manager Robin Campbell and Senior Planner Amy Hatch-Winnica from Thurston Regional Planning Council to give the presentation. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you.
You know, Amy, I just have to say, I think all three of us were out to that steady presentation.
Yep. I think you had four. There were four commissioners there on Friday, so yeah.
That was just a high level.
Yep, and steady has gotten much bigger too.
Oh my God.
Thomasina, do you want me to drive the presentation or?
Gosh, I completely forgot you have a presentation.
Yep,
Oh, sorry.
that's all right.
No good reason for that.
And like I said, I think Commissioner Edwards has seen this a couple of times, so maybe he could just start us off. Yeah, like as Commissioner Menzer said, this is just an informational, just to kind of give you an update of where we're at with rural transit. We've got some really cool enhancements I wanted to share with you and some more that we're planning. So, oh, this is the trade-offs plan. I'm doing rural transit. It's the second from the left. Left, right, look at you.
Rob's probably never seen it before. That's who we're educating here.
Well, so it's important we get it up on the screen. Okay, so you're gonna run your own slideshow here.
And just scroll.
Scroll or click.
All right. So a couple years ago, I took over rural transit from Karen Parkhurst, who had not only run it for years, but also was the instigator behind it. Definitely saw a huge need in the community. Intercity transit is a transit service that is primarily within the urban area, and there's a big need out in the rural areas, you know, for some sort of transit service. And so rural transit fills that need. We'll see in a few moments sort of the map of where it goes, but there's a pickup in Tumwater, and it goes down all the way down actually to the Mellon Street Station in Centralia, so we can intersect there with Grays Harbor Transit and Twin Transit, which is now called Lewis County Transit. So that is a great transfer point. But then it also goes down over to Bucota, Grand Mound, Nino, Rainier, and actually, and now as of mid-August, it goes to Yelm as well. So, but through the back way through to Nino to Yelm, and intersects with intercity transit there. So folks can really, get the full service all the way through. The route is a variable fixed route in that we have, there's time stops, but then also if you need it, you can contact our service provider about a day in advance and ask to be picked up if you're within 3/4 of a mile of the route. So that service is really meant for folks that have some sort of physical impairment that can't make it to the route stop itself, and so then we'll actually just come and pick you up from your house if you're within that 1/4 of a mile or 3/4 of a mile. We also contract in South County with the Boys and Girls Club, with Roof, and with Together, and those folks provide before and after school care. Transportation to care and also to summer school during the off-school hours. So, I didn't highlight this. So for years, it was just a weekday route, and we talked a lot with our riders just to try to figure out what it was that they needed in order to really enhance their experience. And one of the main things we heard is, please, there's a huge gap in service in Tenino. There was a big, like a 5-hour gap in service there, and so they wanted that gap filled. They wanted to be able to go to Mellon Street so they could use that as a transfer point down in Centralia. But the main thing we heard is, please, could we have Saturday service? And so that came online in mid-October. And as soon as Saturday service got online, folks immediately started asking for Sunday service. So, so we'll see about that. The grant that we have right now, we have the sort of the the basic continuing grant, and then, which is a 4-year grant, from the Washington Department of Transportation. And then the expansion, so going out to Yelm and going Saturday service and such is a 2-year grant, sort of a pilot. And we will start writing the new grant for that this summer and hopefully get it approved this fall. So we're hoping to make that expansion much more permanent. And the ridership is definitely showing that folks are liking it. We're getting out in the community and trying to tell it, share it more so with people. The other thing we're working to get is an enhancement that would be an app on your phone, so you could actually track where the bus is and you'd be able to predict, down to the moment, right? Like if you're standing out at the stop, you can see your bus coming and know when it's gonna come and you can get out of the rain. One of the things that about a year or so ago, I rode the bus just to see what it was like. And one of the things I noticed is there were no, let me see, I'm getting ahead of myself here. There were no signs anywhere about where to stand. There's no bus stop signs. And that's something because the grant we have from WashDOT is an operating grant and they don't pay for signage or for shelters. And so we worked with our partners and we were able to get some signs. We were able to get them installed. So we've been working with the local jurisdictions to actually install them for us because you guys know what it's like to dig a hole in the ground. There's a lot of permits involved. So the local jurisdictions have been incredibly amenable. Rainier really led the way and they were sort of the first pusher of the sign. So now folks know where to stand, which seems like a really small thing. But if you don't ride, it's an impediment. When I rode the bus, I picked it up in Tumwater and with actually a person from WashDOT, and we were standing about 200 feet from where the stop was. And I run this program and I knew where the X was on our map, but I was still in the wrong spot. So definitely having bus stop signs is just a very bare minimum of what we can offer folks. We're working on getting some hand-me-down shelters as we can from other transit services. So because so many of our shelters are out in the world, in the rain and the dark. So we'd really like to get those places covered for people. The other piece that I mentioned is just that we've requested to WashDOT as an enhancement to utilize some of the existing budget in the grant that we already have to be able to get an app so that folks could track the buses on their phones. It also gives us an opportunity to be able to see where buses are and what our on-time service looks like. So what we've been hearing from our passengers is that it's something they expect from all their transit services now is to really see where the buses are. So I totally get that. We've also, I'm gonna back up just a smidge. So we did a whole revision of our the layout of our rider guides as well. So now rather than being sort of it was almost like a booklet. Now it's just each route has its own little trifold. It looks like this. We've made it really easy to read where the transfer stops are, where, at what different times you can pick up the bus, and the map is really clear. And there's actually an interactive map online too. So if you're looking at this on your phone, you can click on the different pieces and be able to see where your stop is exactly, where to stand in case the signage hasn't come yet to your space. So we've done that for all 3 of the routes. Oh, I just admitted Commissioner Klaus. She was in the waiting room.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. As we move forward, like I said, we're going to hopefully enhance that with that new application for riders. We're also continuing to reach out to other partners to be able to, we really want to spread the word. Transit is something that nobody really thinks about until you need it. And so we're trying to get out and talk to many folks and spread that word. We're also talking to the, Pacific Mountain. They have done training before, and drivers is a limiting factor for transit all across the country. And so we have been working with Pac Mountain over probably the last year and a half in fits and starts to try to get a training set up for drivers so that we could have sort of a pipeline established. So that's something we've had a few discussions with them about. I mentioned shelters. Shelters are going to be important. It's, outside today would be great to be undercover, but especially I feel for folks who have to wait in the dark, especially, it just doesn't feel very safe. So working on that. And then something else, because it's rural, we offer flagged out stops. So which means that if you are along and the driver sees you and it's safe to stop, you literally flag down the driver to get them to stop and pick you up. It has to be a safe place, so that's something we need to educate our passengers on. And then we want to give the passengers something so that they can be reflective and visible during that, so the drivers can see it really quickly. So that's sort of one of our next bits and pieces, is just to make sure we've got drivers that are aware and can see folks, and that the passengers know that if the bus zooms past them, it wasn't because they weren't seen, it was because maybe they weren't standing in a safe spot that the driver could stop. So that's a piece we're working on. And aside from that, I forgot to mention that our buses they all have bike racks that are wheelchair accessible, and they're actually all propane powered. We converted this to propane power a number of years ago, so in terms of emissions, they're good on that. We're getting a lot of folks that ride the bus that use those e-bikes. And so lots of times we can get those to fit on the front, on the bike rack in the front, but some of them have their chubby tires. So that's something that we'll have to upgrade eventually on, is to a bike rack that allows for those chubby tires to be on the front, versus that way they're not riding in the bus with folks. So all the things about transit that I didn't even know that I needed to know.
Do you buy those buses new, or do you get them from inner city?
No, we get them new, and we don't own them. Around the Sound is our service provider, and they write a grant for WashDOT, and that's like a capital grant. And so the buses are owned by WashDOT for the duration, and then they get leased.
So they go through the disposal process with the state or whatever.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
They're all propane.
They are, yeah. Yeah, our service provider really likes it, and it has brought, obviously the price of propane, especially during the pandemic, went way up, but not as dramatic as gas or diesel did, so it's helped.
Where do they fuel up at?
It's a good question. They're located out of Tacoma, but Rochester is where they run our service out of, and so they have a fueling station down there in Rochester.
Down in Rochester?
Yeah, our route, the route manager is based out of Rochester, so. Yeah, they're all down there.
How long can you run? 1 day on a tank of fuel?
Ooh, good question.
1 week or anything like that? You know that?
I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know how long, like what's the.
I should get on one and go for a ride, then I would know.
Yeah, miles per gallon or whatever
Right,
it is.
well,
yeah.
just to get a sense for
Right.
when somebody asks. I like the flag down portion, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of folks that use it. We just wanna make sure that, because we definitely, when folks get zoomed past, that's when we hear about it, right? And,
bet.
You didn't pick me up, and it's like, yep, and we talked to the drivers about that, and they say, yep, we saw the person, but they were standing in a place.
They're standing on the bridge or
Yeah, or they
whatever.
were standing someplace that wasn't safe, so, yeah. And the other piece is, it's tricky we definitely need something that, because the driver is driving, and if you're standing in a group of people and you're one person flagging down, that's just a lot for the driver to.
Could be just
balance.
waving, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we want something that's like, how do you, other transit services have used those reflective slap bands. Remember those were all the rage with kids like a while ago,
Oh, yeah.
those little slap band things. And so we thought about that, and that might work, but you just, how do you always remember as a rider to grab all the other things that you're grabbing? How do you remember to grab your slap band as well? So I don't know, something that is memorable and trying to bolster the safety of it as well, so.
Are you on a fare system, or is it?
Fare free?
Has that always been that way?
No, but we went fare free when IT did.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah. It's worked out.
After we passed that last initiative, it became possible, right?
Yeah, no, it's worked great. I saw the intercity transit presentation that it was costing them more money to collect fares than it was to go fare free because of all yeah, you would know this better than I.
Yeah, it was at the most, it was less than 10% of their budget, and we had outdated equipment that needed to be, if we're gonna keep collecting fares, we would have had to spend millions in going to the Orca system or whatever the choices were, the old machines were pretty much toast.
Mm-hmm.
So, the analysis turned out to be, kind of whittled it down to 5%, and then we felt like the increased ridership and accessibility was just gonna totally be worth it.
So, yeah,
And then not have to make that capital investment for the
that's
new
huge.
fare collection.
Yep, that's totally huge.
So,
Yeah, and I think you're right, the accessibility piece is the biggest.
ridership, I mean, the pandemic really hit everything hard, but it was like spiking like 35% right
I
before the
remember, yeah.
pandemic.
Yeah, because it was only a few months between the fare free and when the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I mean, we've been seeing our numbers, start to rebound, but we're still nowhere near where we were pre-pandemic.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's still coming back.
Okay. Other
Yeah.
questions?
No, thank
I
you.
think George said that he's going to be
Yes.
riding along and
I
he
want to do
invited-
that with him.
I
Did he
was
set a
like-
date for that?
No, he has not set a date yet, but I know that I'm excited to also like.
Are you guys gonna do it? Oh,
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah,
great.
but I can't.
Yeah,
I did
Linda,
it.
yeah.
I did it with IT where I took like, I wanted to see how easy it was to get to Pierce County and back. So I kind of set up a day where I just kind of like from my house and I took it to the transit and I waited for the one, I forget what they call it, the express one. And then I went to like, I just like came up with an itinerary, like, let's go to Pierce County College. Let's say I'm a student and I want to go to college up there and then catch a Rainiers game. I think I found a day where there was an afternoon Rainiers game. And so I went from the college to the Rainiers Stadium to downtown Tacoma and then back to Olympia,
And how did it
just to
go?
see. It went pretty well. It's just good to get a sense of the timing of it.
Yes.
And how long it takes so that you can really make decisions, because we've been asked to make decisions about expanding service. It's like, okay, well, how inadequate is it? You don't really know until you've been a rider and you've stood there and waited for the bus and do they come on time or do they, are they actually half an hour late and whatever. So I mean, and is that gonna help you, you're gonna be able to keep a job when the bus, it's half an hour late?
Exactly, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just wanted to, it's a good chance to just get a feel for it. And so I would like to do the same thing with rural transit.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did the same thing. Like I said, I wrote it too, because it was a service. I needed to write it, so
But like, not just write, like I would recommend, and I'm sure George was gonna do the same thing, it's like,
do a thing.
yeah, like pretend like you're a person that needs it and like set up a couple places you need to go and then feel that. And then you feel the pressure, like, oh, I'm not gonna get there, and then, because if you're just like, oh, I missed the bus, if you're just riding the bus around,
Yes.
it's not quite the
Yes.
same than if you're trying to keep some kind of try to get to a doctor's appointment. Say you're in Rochester and you gotta get to Tumwater for an appointment and see if that feels comfortable to you, And if it
Yeah, we have
doesn't,
folks that write it, like, state workers that write it from, their rural homes up to Tumwater Square, and are able to access it that way.
yeah, then you
or-
can hit IT.
Yeah, exactly. Or they'll just, that's the stop, is right there at those state office buildings
Right.
too. So that's another opportunity. But yeah, kids will ride it down to Centralia College, or down, there's a lot of riders that go to the casino, the down in Centralia Casino. That one's probably not as timely, but I'm sure like you said, the college and getting to work on time, those are all good ones. So, yeah, that's exciting. I'm glad you guys are gonna do that.
Do you try to have your pickup and drop off spots somewhere in close proximity to some type of a business activity? Like down in Rochester, there's that little cafe there in town or something.
Yes, I mean,
People could go in there and have a sandwich while they're waiting.
yeah, and
So
some
it
of the
might
stops
help
are in
that.
quirky spots, like there's a stop at the Scott Lake Grocery, for instance, and for the same kind of reason, so folks can kind of duck into the
Yeah.
grocery to stay out of the rain. The grocery store, appreciates it, that there's people, and then, but, so, yeah, I mean, so in cases where we can, we do, and then, and that's just, again, that's just a conversation with folks, over a course of time. One of the things we did when we took this over is also went down and sat down with our service provider and went down every single stop. And then we talked to each, of the jurisdictions, or if it was at Scott Lake, for instance, we talked to the, probably not, is it Scott Lake? I might
The
be saying
store
that wrong.
operator.
Yeah, we talked to them specifically to make sure it was still working for them as well, right? But we, talking to the jurisdictions and, making sure that it worked, that they still felt it was a safe place, and that, there's construction coming up, we're gonna need to make a detour, down in Grand Mound, there's that, construction on the overpass that's happening, and so we needed to make a change in one of our stops because of that. So it was really helpful to sit down, and that's something we're doing annually now, is really sitting down and going through every single one of our stops and then interacting with all of the jurisdictions who house a stop to make sure that it still works. And then having the conversation with the riders to make sure that they're still feeling safe at those stops.
If you
So-
get there early to your stop, do you kind of just take it easy until you're back on schedule? So you wait there maybe 5 minutes?
Yes, Yeah, you're not supposed to, leaving early for a transit is never good, right? Always, it's better to leave, on time
a
or
few
even a
minutes
minute
late even,
late
or- yeah.
than it would ever be to.
That's the only time that I get mad at IT is like
Yeah.
if they leave 2 minutes early.
It's bad.
You're on
I'm
time, you're on
angry, yeah, like
time.
I'm right there and I see it pulling away and I've gotten really mad at that.
Yeah, it's awful. No, we were laughing, for spring break this last year, my family and I went to Greece, and we took the bus to go to one of the ruins, and the bus left like 20 minutes early, and we just happened to have gotten there early, but it was, it was completely coincidence, but literally, and the next bus wasn't for 2 hours, and so what are those people doing when you leave early like that? So, I mean, that's a totally different example, but yeah, that's sacred, you don't leave early, you leave when you say you're gonna leave.
I noticed one of the spots is at Rainier, but it's on the backside of the Rainier
Yep.
store.
Yep.
And they don't have an entrance back in that area, nor would it be visible versus, I don't know if they pulled out, in front of the store, if they pulled into that parking lot, I don't know if it's.
Well,
been an
some of
issue.
the, let's see,
Yeah, that's it right there.
Yeah, right here, so this is,
It's by the trail, though.
Yeah, so Rainier loves this, they want it here.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
good.
because they paved, like last winter, before, you can't see it, but it's on
There's a
our
parking
side
lot
here.
off to the
Yeah,
left.
there's that parking lot, it used to be gravel, they
Yep.
paved it, they
Okay.
striped it, they actually gave us, a parking spot in it. They really, and they're, like I said, they were the ones that were like, hey, let's move the stop to here, because I think it was in a different spot, we moved it to here on purpose, because Rainier asked us to, they felt like it would be easier for their residents to just park at the parking lot and then jump on the bus,
Yeah.
than have to, kind of gallivant all over the place. And then, yeah, it's super proximal to the trail. And when we get a shelter, I'm sure that they'll be the first ones to get it, because they're so easy to work with, and they know exactly where the shelter's gonna go. So, yeah, Rainier's been at the forefront of
And we're gonna
all
have a
these.
new restroom somewhere there, close.
Yeah, further down, I think, a little bit
It's a
down
little
that.
farther down, but at least it's there.
Yeah, it's great, yeah. Right. So this is what the bus, and inner city transit has been a huge partner, like I said, we can't do the painting, we can't do the installation, and so IT has helped us, this one up here is the one in Tumwater, by the Safeway is over here, this is like that gas station, and so they worked with Tumwater to stripe for us and install the sign, and then here's at those state office buildings, and so, we're sharing that stop with IT. And, IT just doesn't have to say yes to that, but, they did, and they installed the sign for us. So it's just been a lot of kindness. I mean, rural transit is weird because we're not a transit agency, right? It's just TRPC, we're running it, but then we contract the services out to a service provider, and, we also don't get IT, it has access to a lot of different state and federal dollars that we don't, because we're not a transit agency, so.
What is the contractor you said? You mentioned their name.
Around the Sound is the name of the contractor. Yeah, they're in Tacoma, they work with, Pierce, on there's another one up in Pierce goes rural, Pierce County, that's called Beyond the Borders, that they run as well. But yeah, they've been great to work with, and we did an RFP process, in the spring, and,
They
got a
knew?
couple. I'm sorry? Nope, they're the same ones,
Okay.
no,
They've
we
been doing
did, we
it
got a
for a
couple
while.
bidders, but we ended up going with our existing contractor,
Okay.
so.
Any other questions?
Did Emily get in on this?
Yeah, Commissioner Klaus is there, Assistant County Manager Rob Gilder is with us too.
Nice. Good.
Oh, one question, I couldn't actually find my raised hand feature, but so what is the funding source? If you're not affiliated with intercity transit, and I'm familiar with transit agencies, so what is the funding source?
We apply every 2 or 4 years to Washington Department of Transportation, and it's through one of their grant programs. So, I mean, over the years, I would say rural transit has grown and shrunk dependent upon the transportation budget over time. So, that's why, I mean, the transportation budget is more flush, we were able to get an expansion grant, we're hoping to make that permanent, and we're hoping the transportation grant continues to, or the transportation budget at the state continues to stay robust.
So you mentioned Pierce County having similar, is this like something that WashDOT feels every county should have, or are we kind of like a pilot? Do you know how like typical this is county by county? Like if I went to Whatcom, would I see
something
or
similar.
Skagit, what I see in rural transit, WashDOT funded program to
Probably
get
not. I
to
mean,
the-
they're usually, and the one in Pierce County is run, I think, by, well, how do they do that? Maybe the Beyond the Borders might be for just paratransit type of a service.
part of
but
Pierce
the-
Transit or something.
Yeah, or it's, because what I've been told by our community liaison with WashDOT is that we are unique in that we're not a transit agency. I think all the rest of the rest of the transit services across the state
So it is
are transit agencies. So it's, like even the rural parts of the county are serviced by the transit agency.
Is that how it was in Kitsap, Rob?
No, there was one transit agency, and I think similar services where the grants, as opposed to coming directly from WashDOT, actually went through the Puget Sound Regional Council, and they did the granting, but there were no additional services out in Kitsap other than in paratransit. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like we're good to go.
Yeah, all right, well, you get half an hour of your life back. so.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Thank you. I think
Thank
we've
you.
got something else.
We'll be adjourned. We have another at 2 o'clock.
Two.
Nice, good.
That's good.
right, good afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session, Wednesday, January 24th, 2024. It's 2:01 p.m. My name is Ty Mentor, Chair of the Board. My left is Vice Chair Commissioner Fournier, Commissioner Mejia. We have Commissioner Klaus on Zoom, and Commissioner Edwards will be joining us just in a few moments. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. We have an hour session to get an update on the courthouse project with our central services and project management team. And we have interim county manager Robin Campbell, who can hopefully set us up with where we're going on this briefing.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. So this is an update to where we're at on the infrastructure improvements to buildings 1 through 7 on the courthouse campus. And as you know, this project has been long in the making, and I'm very excited to turn it over to Tom. We have Rick Thomas also on the screen. He's working from home today, but to turn it over to Tom and our guest to tell you about this project. This project is especially exciting for the county because this is our first project that we're doing as a design build alternative rather than your regular public works project. So we're learning a lot about those. And as the first one of those types of projects, if it goes well, then we hope to do more projects using this method in the future. So super exciting all the way around. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Tom.
And I have to ask Thomasina for directions again to get to the slide deck. Was it share screen?
Go ahead and share screen.
Can you-
The green, bright green button.
That helps.
And then presentation, double click. There you go.
Alrighty. So it's. Look like mine.
This is not the right one.
I'll go ahead and kind of get started while we hopefully find the correct one. I'm Tom Stremke with Central Services, the project manager on this project. To my left here is Marvin Darstler with Mortensen. He's the project executive and project manager so far on this project. He's here to help answer any questions that may arise during the process here. I wanted to give a little history of the project for the new commissioners and to bring us up to date to how we got here. In your packet, one of the first documents you have here is a approval letter from the Capital Projects Advisory Review Board. Since this is an alternate delivery method of procuring construction services, there we go, now we have the correct one. We had to get permission to use this method of procurement of services. So about this time last year, we put an application together to send to the Capital Projects Review Board. And in March 23rd, we got approval to proceed with this project. That's what you have here is this letter. Once we did that, got approval, part of that approval is the next slide you have here is the budget that was submitted with the application, showing the different allocations broken out, totaling the $50 million we have for this project. Some of these things are set there like sales tax, project contingencies. Those are required by RCW to be in the project. And then the other stuff is deviated up as we saw it as the estimate starting the project. Once we had approval, we know what the money was available. We put out a RFQ to hire a design construction consultant together. We received 6 proposals. We narrowed it down to 3. After evaluating them, Mortensen became our top selected candidate. We negotiated with them and we entered into an agreement with them. Part of Mortensen's group is Miller Hall. They're the design group. We also have Finterest Incorporated. I may use this term loosely, but to understand that they are court experts, but when we say court, we don't mean a courtroom. We mean how the courts operate as a whole, with the Superior Court, District Court, clerk, prosecuting attorney, public defense, all those members have to operate together. So with their expertise, they help along the design process to see whose adjacencies work together well, how the space works. That helped us in selecting our design. So moving forward from there, as part of this packet, I wanted to, because everybody asks, when's this gonna happen? We've been working on it since a year ago. There's a lot that has transpired during this year. Mortensen joined the team at the end of June, July 4th, or not July 4th, but the first Monday after July 4th, we met as a group. We've been meeting weekly since then. About mid-July, we met with the stakeholders. We wanted to meet with them, understand their needs, their concerns, where they saw this project going. We had a document that was done by a previous design firm to help kind of spread out, tell us where they thought the needs were, how many occupants, space they need. That was our point of departure. We brought the new team on. And like I said, in early July, we met with the stakeholders. It took until November to get narrowed it down to two selections. And the reason it took this long is there's a lot of things involved. Once they understood what the space requirements were, what space was available, and dollars and cents. And I'm gonna kind of skip out of order here in my slides. But before I leave this one, it says, let's redefine possible. Knowing that the amount of work we have to do and the budget we have, the team has embraced that motto. How do we redefine possible? We know it's possible. Anything with enough time and money is possible, but we have limited time, limited dollars, so what is possible? We have an excellent team that's come together to process this. This slide here, I know it's kind of hard to read, but it's just to help you understand that the top portion of the slide is different items or tasks or requests from the stakeholders. Some are requirements because of code, other requirements that come up during the project. This is a snapshot of where we're at right now. Mortensen, back in July, had the same list of things as the design team was designing. Mortensen's working in parallel, saying, if you do this many offices, it's gonna cost you X amount of dollars. You do this many, it's gonna cost you Y. So it's been a constant, I don't wanna call it a battle, is that a good word, or a constant
Trade-off, we like to use.
trade-off?
Balancing.
Balancing.
That's what it is. It's a constant give and take based on the new information that becomes available for the project team.
So when I say it took till November to get down to two selections, I saw maybe 6, maybe 7 variations of floor plans and designs. And they'd say, does this work, does not work? Morton said, the price is too high, we have to cut scope, we have to do this. That's how they narrowed it down to 2. Early on in the process, as a team, it was decided that Mortensen and Miller, Hall, and Fentress were not gonna bring anything to the county that would not meet that $50 million budget. So we may have started with 7 scenarios, we narrowed down to 4 scenarios. As they worked their magic to get down to the 2 we selected, then we presented them to Robin for final selection, said this is the design we want to go forward with. So that's what took us to November. At that point, again, they got the green light, said go, we're doing this design. They proceeded on and refined the drawings and that we're able to present them to the stakeholders. We met briefly in December to give them a quick update as to where the project was. As you can see in the drawings, they're color coded. So we said, here's your space, this is where you're gonna get to. And then that was kind of a high level. So then we came.
Before you go any
Okay.
farther, I would just like to clarify that when they came to me and said, here's the designs, choose, that's not the last bite at the design apple. That was me saying, I think this one will work best. This is the one to take to the stakeholders. So it wasn't, I didn't choose the final design. I chose the one that would then go on the next step. So,
It's more of a final concept.
yeah,
Because-
concept.
the concept
Good way
as
to
we continue to
define.
refine
I don't want
the
anyone to
project.
think that I was making the last November.
I think
on
you're
what my
blamed,
layout
you're gonna
would
get
be.
blamed if it goes wrong. I thought you were planning a defense.
Defending myself.
That, yes, she selected the concept, and as introduction, it said buildings 1 through 7. As part of this conceptual idea, and we'll get more into detail of where we are, it brought it down to how are we gonna accomplish the amount of work we need within the budget and meet as many needs as we can of the stakeholders. That was in December. That's the drawings you're gonna see here that we met with in the stakeholder meetings. They reviewed them, they discussed them with them, and they gave us more feedback. And that brings us up to about where we are today, because we met with them in the week of January 8th. They discussed it with us. We told them here's what we're proposing, how does this meet your needs? So that brings me to the schedule that didn't have necessarily these in the correct order, but brings us to the area we are now. So we're in January, we're still working on the design. We still have to meet with the stakeholders at least 2 more times to finalize the design and concept. And as you can see, moving forward, we have to, once we sign off on the drawings, then we have to do a permit set, which means they gotta do the construction documents, which will take 4 months roughly to get to permitting. We rely on the city of Olympia. We have some time frame in there for them to give us approval, then we proceed with construction. So it's kind of high level, that's where we're at today.
If I might add,
Sure.
as we proceed with the construction documents after these next meetings with the stakeholders and their buy-off on the revisions that they've asked us to make to the concept plans, we'll then progress the design, and specifically about midway through, we'll have an interim design printing that will be another opportunity for everyone to review, to make sure that the detail that is necessary for them to do their business is getting incorporated correctly into the documents.
I would also add, as many commissioners know, this is all part of what we referred to as Plan B. When we did not go forward with the new courthouse concept, Romero and I developed a Plan B that the board agreed to, and we're going down that path. And one step in Plan B was to move general government into this building, and doing the new upgrades on the courthouse buildings is just a part of Plan B. Getting the sheriff into a new facility is part of Plan B. But on the courthouse piece, we knew we had $50 million to spend. And when we developed Plan B, we gave commissioners a very rough outline of where everyone would land. That was just a test of would people fit. And they did. But Romero and I had this idea in our heads of who was going to go where. And I really appreciate the work that the team has done with this whole let's redefine possible concept, because they've come in a few times now. Early on, we figured out Building 7 needed to be out of scope. And we set that aside, and we're going down a whole new path now with Building 7 with possibilities around childcare. And some of the things you'll hear today are very different than that initial idea. And that's because these folks are working really hard to make everything fit and work in a way that makes the buildings work for the stakeholders and still stay within that amount of money. And they're bringing some really innovative ideas.
So that being said, we can move on to the floor plans. I don't know if you have questions now, or you want me to go through the floor plans?
Couple quick
Go ahead, Commissioner. Is that okay?
So we don't get too far down the road,
Yeah.
and I forget my question. So, how close was the old team to where you took off with the new team, you said you kind of changed off there. And you were going from an older plan to the new plan. Did you have to change everything, or were you able to start off halfway there? Or?
Percentage-wise, I'm gonna say 50% accurate. I mean, we went back and revisited because we went through and we asked the stakeholders, what is your needs for the next 3 to 5 years? Because staffing increases and that type of stuff. So some of the scope or program needs may have grown a little bit. It's the same, we only have the same 6 buildings, so it's gonna happen in that. So you think that's a fair estimate, 50%
Yeah,
off the original?
I think DLR study really did set a good foundation, and the county got its money's worth. But moving beyond that study and what was the future needs, which really didn't get addressed, and then asking some of the really detailed questions about how all of the departments interface, which was the benefit of bringing our Ventress on board, really helped us shape it to where we've managed to get to today. So,
When you're done with this project, is it gonna include additional parking?
No.
Okay, is there
It's not in.
any plan to address additional parking?
Not at this time under our purview. The parking is pretty much based on the occupancy. Per code, it says,
So is there any change in the occupancy that's gonna permit a lesser number of parking stalls, or is there gonna be a larger number needed? I'm wondering about the root configuration in the parking areas, breaking up the asphalt, from the bigger trees, because I was here when those trees were originally this big. Planted. Really, I was. And, so now they're this big, and they're damaging to the roof and all that. And I've suggested this before, that they need to look, when they do the remodel, they need to think about, hey, these trees, why do you want this great big tree that's a potential of wrecking the whole thing when you get it done in an adequate windstorm? Why not take that down and put a nice little ornamental tree or a different kind of a tree or something? So nothing is in the works whatsoever about that?
Trees are not good for roofs, yeah.
Yeah, they're for the parking area. breaks
And
up-
roofs too, with
Yeah,
all
and
the
the
litter
roofs,
and the
asphalt, trees,
moisture.
roof, the
Ty
whole
wants to
thing.
cut them all down.
Redoing that whole parking lot is not part of the scope of this
Right.
project.
Does it really solve our needs if we don't look at the total project? You're kind of trying to look at the total project within the confines of the existing.
I think that by moving out all of general government, that has alleviated parking so much at the courthouse that there's plenty of parking there in terms of number of spaces. The configuration of the lots and redoing the lots is not part of the scope of this project.
Well, maybe it needs to be. I don't know the answer to that,
Well,
but
if you'd
I
like to
hate to do-
appropriate additional money to the project, then
Well,
maybe we could look at
But you
that.
prioritize what you have to do the job correctly. And I'd like to hear more than, well, I think it'll be adequate parking. I'd like to know a little more than that.
they're currently doing that study to see
Okay.
how many is required parking, how many ADA's required parking.
Okay,
Be mindful that everybody thinks the parking is that right in the area of buildings 1, 2, and 3. We have, what's the lot down the street a little bit? Is that J lot? So we have J lot that's not even being used right now. It's,
And we've got the lot by what was formerly the Red Lion, and
Yeah.
we've got a lot of
well,
parking
you might think
on-
about tree damage, because just, like the commissioner said, it's not good for roofs.
right,
And if it comes down across the building, it can total it out,
yes.
depending on the damage.
the current parking that is available for the project currently, and we're doing a more detailed study, is actually overparked. We have more spaces than are required.
Well,
That's the
that's good.
first thing. The second thing is we start taking trees down and disturbing soil. We have a stormwater requirement that kicks in, which is millions of dollars impact to the project. So if we start doing that, then we're gonna have to trade off for building scope.
Well, if you take a tree down, can't you okay, the tree dies, you take it down, you put another one up.
Unfortunately, the city's requirements is you disturb the soil no matter what, it kicks in the stormwater requirements. Doesn't matter how you do it, whether you're, taking a tree down, putting a new tree in, et cetera. Under the project, if we do something to disturb the existing soil, it counts against us relative to stormwater.
I mean, it's interesting to know government does a lot of stupid things. And that sounds like it might be one of them where you can't protect your investment of $50 million from a tree this big coming down, smashing it. I would say we need to look into that, but that's just me, so. Anyway, more to come.
Let's keep going.
All righty.
I bet we might discuss this again.
Okay, so moving on to our floor plans. Building 1, and just as you go through, just to let you know, this scope of projects does not include Building 6. The design team and construction team come with us to a proposal that we're fitting all these in Buildings 1 through 5. So,
We'll talk more about building 6 at the end.
yes. So looking at Building 1, the yellow area is a training area. We heard from all the constituents that we want a large space that we can gather in for our quarterly meetings. So ideally, it's already a large training space now, needs very little to meet the budget, but then that can meet the needs of all the stakeholders on the quarterly meeting if they have 50 or more people as a group. To the left of the yellow area in the middle there is pretrial. To the left of them is, I always get this wrong, PAO Civil is on the first floor. Moving down the page to the lower left corner is a security entrance in Building 1. The reason we got to this point is we proposed, and it's been talked about, as a central security building in the center of the courtyard. But just as Marvin mentioned, you start cutting down trees, there's utilities in there. The cost to build a structure in the middle of the courtyard, we didn't see feasible. It just added too much cost and too many implications there. So that's why the security screening area is in Building 1, and then we'll use the court. We're still developing that idea of how to secure the entrances going from Building 1 to 2 and 3 through the existing courtyards.
So we're still talking about a single point of contact, or entrance. We had talked about a single point of entrance and what,
In like encapsulating the courtyard,
exactly.
but still having an outside courtyard, or are you talking about making that?
No, it would be an external courtyard within but it would be within a closed space. So we were talking about, and I'm sorry, we don't have a campus layout here to show you, because it would make more sense if I could show you on a campus layout. But where there's currently a kiosk that says, go to Building 1 for this, go to Building 2 for that, we were thinking in that area, we would put a little security building where and fence it off. So once through security, and then you could go to Buildings 1, 2, or 3. Stakeholders didn't particularly like that. It wasn't penciling out within the amount of money we had to spend. So instead, what it is in the design right now is we'd go ahead and do the fence, and there'd be one entry into Building 1. The security screens would be in Building 1, and then you would exit within the courtyard to go to any of the other buildings.
So looking at on the screen, you enter into the building here, you go through the kiosk.
I'm sorry, can you do that again?
Right here, basically where you enter in Building 1 right now.
I don't see your
So not,
I don't see your pointer.
oh, let me go up there and do it by hand, make it easier.
Yeah, thank you.
So you would enter into the Building 1 here, and you go through the kiosk or the queue for screening, go through the screening and come back out here. If this is the little covered area that goes to Building 3 down here, then you come over and go to Building 2 here. That's how it would work. Then if you're in this building, you come through here and come back out this door to go into the rest of Building 1.
I'm really confused. I don't know, like right now, where's
This
the
is your
front
entry
door?
right here into Building 1.
Right now?
Yes.
That's
That doesn't-
that's not off the
Doesn't make
parking lot.
sense.
That's from the,
Oh, your
front door is where-
Come in here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
so
yeah.
there's
Why would you
the
have
The new training room is currently room 152.
Right, so why would the security, how are you gonna, you'd have to get into the courtyard to get into that entry point.
That's why we're still
No.
discussing how it's going, because right now this is an open courtyard.
Yeah,
You just come in here, go through the screening, and come back out here, and then we're working on how to screen.
Yeah,
oh, I
That-
see, you're
Like the
gonna,
walkways is where we're gonna screen.
right.
you're gonna come down that little path and go in, because you'd be out of the courtyard there, but then you
Yes.
come back, okay, I got you.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and then
It's still being developed to
Would
make.
that still be public access up
No.
by where that
No.
training
No.
room is and
No.
that? So the only public access point would be this weird
through the screening.
vestibule thing?
Yes,
Vestibule.
for screening, yes. That way, building 1 has screening, buildings 2 and 3 all have screening.
You mean
That way
it's
there's
utilizing
one
the same
point of
screen?
security.
Yes, yes.
Okay, is, on that quarterly training room, I
Yes.
take it there's gonna be a lot more use, like jury selection or something can be scheduled in that room as a regular activity rather than just quarterly.
Hold that thought, we'll get to,
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get
Jury
to a jury
selection.
selection.
Okay,
All right, I'm with you now.
So the unoccupied per county manager, what's that whole,
So there had been thoughts of a number of things going in there.
well, at the first iteration, it was the clerk's office, but then there was issue with,
The clerk wanted
and
to
then-
remain in building 2.
Is that area in there?
So the
because of the vault?
clerk, well, because they want to be close to the courtrooms. So the clerk is not moving into this building. And then one idea was to move probation out of the basement in building 3, because they're down in the admin section of the old jail. That's where they are today. And we thought, well, we can get them out of the basement. They've not been happy in the basement. There's egress issues in the basement. And we thought, wow, we could get them out of the basement and move them into this building. There's plenty of room for probation here. And now they would be in a secure area. But district court does not want them in a different building, even though it's the building right next door. So this space is vacant, and I told the guys, just leave it vacant for now. So, I mean, there may be another reasonable use in the future. And if you should go, well, there could be another reasonable use in the future.
so it's currently vacant, how much square feet is that?
I do not have that off the top of my head, but I can get you that answer.
What are you thinking?
Hey,
If I might interject, moving people into the different spaces is two-dimensional chess. Unfortunately, we have three-dimensional chess. We can only touch less than 49% of the occupied square footage in this building, because if we go to 50%, we trigger upgrades required by code. Seismic, fire protection, lighting, so all, energy.
Yeah.
Which means you don't have enough money to do that in one building, let alone 3. So this three-dimensional moving around and all of this has been really tightly controlled to be less than 50% in every building.
What I was thinking is that the state has, AOC particularly has been talking about doing a pilot program with the courthouses about doing childcare services and, for people accessing the courts. And so that's kind of why I was wondering how much square footage was in there and kind of, because what stopped me before from even telling them or asking them to consider was the spacing thing and knowing that building 7 was way behind it, but if there's just, I think, I did ask them about infrastructure funding, and so, but the space was kind of what it came down to.
Yeah, to bring any of the spaces in this building up to a standard for childcare, If you'd like us to look at it, we certainly could, but I doubt it's feasible.
How is this still just not putting lipstick on a pig?
It is putting
I
lipstick on
know,
the pig.
and then
What are
you like,
talking about?
it scares me to think, like, we also have to think long-term, and we wanna think long-term with these same buildings. And, you know, just earlier we were talking about a bond and a, you know,
That's
levy to put more money in, then how is what,
Not into these buildings, I'm not.
into that
this is-
campus though?
This is the
Okay,
we need a long-range plan.
yeah,
This is the mid-range plan. This gets you, it buys you a little time, maybe 10 years.
and
And
this
you've got to
fits
talk about
into
a
the
new
next
courthouse,
52?
$50 million.
But this would tie into that next phase and we wouldn't just end up with having to redo this all again?
Oh, no, you will need to redo all of this again.
Yeah, that scares me.
New courthouse,
It's just gonna pass, so.
yeah.
I know,
This
but like,
is the,
so we had
this
an
is the
option.
best, this is the best plan we could come up with the money that we had. And that was the criteria.
And think about 4951. Think about those kind of regulatory things that get in your way.
The good news about the 4951, if there is once we're done with this project and there's new space available, unoccupied space available, there's nothing to say you can't go ahead and renovate it as long as it's less than 50%, right? So it's just one of those things that we have to work with.
It's a balancing act.
Go ahead, Tom. We hate to
Alrighty.
hold you up.
Sorry.
You're doing good.
So moving on to the next slide. This is the second floor. This is all prosecuting attorney's office, our public prosecuting attorney's office. Yeah, I got it right this time. And so we're still working with Heidi and John to work through the details of if they meet all their needs and requirements. We've got their feedback on it. So there's not much discussed there. Moving on to the next slide. Let you know that this is, well, let me go to the next slide that helps understand what's going on here. This is the first floor of building 2. What we're proposing, after listening to all the concerns of the stakeholders in building 2, is, and you may have heard it, the back hallway. Let me go up here and demonstrate on this slide to make it easier. The concern with in custody individuals, meeting with the jurors, with the jury.
Where's the elevator at, Tom?
The elevator's right here.
Okay.
So, you know, they came up here, and if there was a detainee, then everybody had to scatter out of there. We heard that loud and clear, everybody on the team. So that was kind of one of our big priorities. How do we address their needs and concerns? That's why you see, and I can't remember the square footage, is it 40, I'm gonna say about 4,000 per floor,
4,200, yeah.
4,200 square foot, 2-floor addition to the building. Since we've just, wanna go ahead and ask a question?
No, I just wanted to let the chair know that I had a question once you're done.
Okay, so since we've done this, we met with the stakeholders, they had 10 or 12 major concerns. We already have an updated floor plan, but I couldn't get that into the packet, but I do have it available that shows a little bit different configuration where now these have been spread out, the entry into this area is in the center. That way they can come in and utilize both areas. This way, the chambers for the court is in the back part of it. All their administrative personnel is within earshot of each other. They're not crossing paths. If I go over here, this elevator, this was the path to all the courtrooms. Right now, we have a second entrance or exit to the elevator into a separate area for holding. Then they can move right into the area of the court room. So that way you can secure that individual. The same thing happens on the second floor so both those courtrooms have an area to isolate the detainee. But it also allows, they can hold them there as they want to move to the other courtrooms.
That two-story building you've got right there, or were you about to say something?
Commissioner Mejia was first,
Yeah,
I think.
go ahead.
I have concerns about the building addition and the feasibility of it. I mean, I've been asking about tearing down that old jail, and I've been told a million times that it's too expensive for it, but yet we're gonna add additional building when we have that empty jail just kind of rotting away right there, right next to it. And
So we took the team into the old jail just to get their input, impact on it. Demolishing jail buildings is expensive because of the way they're built. Again, Mortensen and team wasn't gonna come to us without a project can fit within our budget. That's why we're not doing building 6. The scope of work that would have taken to upgrade it to house the individuals there, we're able to reposition in building 2. This addition allows the courts to get what they need, allows the jury orientation, which is in the red up there, allows the clerk to be in this building, but they're on the second floor. So that's where, as Marvin said, we're moving around places and locations to accommodate the wants and needs of the stakeholders within the budget.
This creates more security in building 2 for the courts. And that was their primary concern, is security. And we managed to afford this by taking building 6 off the table. It's gonna stand empty.
On that two-story business, is that a standalone building, or does that fall within the 4951 threshold?
It's a standalone building.
That's how you get around that. Good move.
With respect to the existing jail, we did studies to understand if we could move people down in there with that 50% balance. The cost of that space, the cost of demolishing it, just doesn't make sense financially.
So moving on to the second floor, as you ponder that.
This is rough.
this is, yeah, I'm not
There
thrilled.
it is. So second floor, again, you have the addition, and again, the design has already been updated where they'll have a central entry into this area. Here's that same sound lock, so they have access to this court. They can take the detainee there. The clerk will be in this whole upstairs area, giving her opportunity to expand her needs there. This is revisited. This shows the conference room. She wanted to be in close proximity to her exhibits. So that's called the trade-offs we've done. This will now become the exhibit area. The conference room will be moved down to building our first floor. The jury rooms are one of those things that was a big concern too. They've expanded to accommodate the 14 jurors a little more comfortably than the room that's about the size of these tables encircled there. So we listened to them. We tried to incorporate as many wishes and desires they had, and hopefully we were able to meet that. On the first pass meeting with them in December, they seemed very pleased. Some minor adjustments that we were able to incorporate. Again, if you need copies of these, we can get them to you later. We have updated floor plans of this building moving forward. And going back to the drawing I skipped, since this will come out, it'll be elevated at the same level as the ground floor now, so it'd be covered parking in this area. We're proposing enclosing this whole area securely, so all the judges that go for both Superior Court and District Court can travel easily within the space. That also been modified a little bit in our recent update. Then moving to building.
How many courtrooms do they have now in building 2?
Each building 2 is getting one extra courtroom,
So they currently have
6, and they're going to 7.
6 and they're going to 7.
And one of the questions that came up in the future, can the jury orientation be a courtroom? We discussed it, I can't remember the answer. It can, but not as easily for jury deliberation and.
Backup courtrooms and.
Yes, because they're talking, this is, now, what I'm familiar with is there may be court or legislation that says they need another judge. Maybe you can help me out on that. I don't know those in particulars. That's the message they gave me. I don't know the truthfulness of that, so they may say, do we need another courtroom? So there is possibilities, but it's not is feasible right now based on what we're trying to accomplish in this project.
So right now, that would become the new jury selection.
Jury selection, jury
Jury,
orientation
yeah.
for 150, it seats 150 individuals. They did mention that sometimes they have a larger group than that, and we can use overflow and go back and use the space they're currently using in Building 1, the large conference training area if needed. So moving to Building 3. I almost hate to show this because what was changed on this one, if I can find it rather quickly, is we propose what you see on the screen there. I'll use my map here. So when we presented this to district court, they were concerned, as Robin said, we want probation to come up from the lower level up here. So in essence, what they've done is this was their small old courtroom in this area here, and they proposed moving probation up into this area and in this area here. And then we reconfigured this, and I don't know how well you can see the drawing here, is probation in this area and reconfiguring the other parts of their requirements there. We're meeting with Superior, or District Court on Friday to present this drawing to them. They have a copy of it. Just, that's how dynamic this project is. It's changing quickly as we hear the needs. What can we accomplish? Can we still keep it within budget? So the team in the background, we have a core team that meets once a week to discuss these things. And they're kind of like the Keebler elves. They're working like crazy behind the scenes and have 2 or 3 gyrations of this, and then they present us to us what we can build in the budget and move on with.
Right,
So-
so district court is choosing to squeeze themselves all onto one floor in building 3.
And they get an extra courtroom.
And they get 1 extra courtroom, yes.
Yeah, and an extra courtroom.
So they put out a notice, right, because due to budget cuts that they were cutting, the probations was what was leaving, so I wouldn't assume there would be much squeezing if that's what they've decided to cut.
Supervised probation.
Well, how big is their probations department?
One person that does online monitoring essentially.
How many
I
people
think,
It's not
are,
a
I think
forever
we
thing.
accommodated 13 people based on what they told us their needs were
That's what they
as of this
decided to
day.
cut.
Commissioner,
To get money back.
13, they wanted accommodated.
I think 13 is what the number is on the top of my head.
When they come to you saying, we don't have enough space, it's because they wouldn't consider other options for probation.
So in this, so in this version, they had this lower level space for probation. But in the current version, that's gone away and they've moved it up to all on the ground
What do they
level.
use the lower level for then?
Nobody, the only thing, the lower level again, that's the administration area in the old jail. So that will again be vacant and not used, and the only thing we're using any of the old jail space for is the, day holding for inmates who are coming to court.
No storage in there anymore?
We're storing stuff down there,
Sheriff's got some.
using
Sheriff
some
has
of that
some,
space.
But it's still
Evidence.
offices down there that they
The
could
evidence
use
is
for,
moving out.
for probation,
Do
right?
what?
It's still offices that they could use for probation.
They could,
These are not really offices. I mean, I know there's a large space here where they have some cubicles. There's one office here and they've kind of ad hoc their operations to fit, because again, it's CMU walls. This area here is the, like you see in the TV where the pass-through window where they talk on the telephones, that's on there. So it hasn't really been done. We put a little carpet in a little area and called it an office. We accommodated their needs at some point. I believe it was because of
During
COVID.
COVID.
Is that the
it was a
reason? Yeah.
COVID
Request.
yeah.
And we believe it doesn't meet code for exiting as it's currently being used.
We
Jail,
were
you're not
looking
supposed to
at
be
the
able to exit.
potential L and I,
They're not built that way.
yeah, findings, but we managed to work around it.
I have another question in regards to sheriff's evidence.
Okay.
And I know that, he came to the board and was concerned about having to move multiple times. And so I'm wondering, is he going to be staying in here until there's an arrangement with what his long-term plan is going to be, or what does that look like?
For evidence, it's staying put because it's not in our program. The sheriff's department that we were proposing to move is on the second floor, or ground floor, moving over to building 5. But that's, I want to say in flux right now, depending on if and when he gets a building, and we're just,
That is all up in the air. So the evidence he wanted consolidated, and so it all depends. If it's going to take us a while to get him into his own building, then he's going to have to move to building 5 so that we can proceed with the work and stay on our timeline for the rest of the upgrades. If we're successful in finding something very quickly that we can just move him into, then he
He's got one
won't
picked
have
out.
to move into building 5. So I mean, we're keeping that in mind as we move forward, but, at some point, he's gonna have to move or he'll hold up the whole project.
But there's also concern about evidence being moved more than once, and just the amount of, I mean, he laid it out really well. It was just the liability of having to move it twice and losing evidence in the process, the amount of work it would take from a staffing perspective. So
we're not moving it as a part of this project. It's staying in that location. When he moves to his final destination, then that would, I would assume would be moved at that
The
time.
evidence is
So the
downstairs.
evidence is
it's
staying,
not
okay.
The space that's being
Yeah, we're
remodeled.
not touching that space.
Okay, that was my, because that was what he was mentioning, is the evidence piece of it and moving that multiple times and his concerns for it.
He has made it very clear to us that he does not want to move into building 5, his people, not just, he doesn't want to move the evidence. So he wants to move once. We'll see if we can accommodate that. We are doing our best.
Are you doing one building at a time, Tom, on your?
The goal is to do buildings 1 and 4 at the same time. And then once those are completed, moving PAO out of building 5 into their portions of building 2 into building 1. And then we can start working on the district and superior courts at the same time. Most likely at this point, we're, it's all gonna be night work so that we can work uninhibited and not affect the courts, because that was a concern of the courts, that any noise or we could cause a mistrial. So we're trying to avoid any overlap there.
And we're doing building 1 and 4 first because they're empty, virtually empty.
Yes. So then the next building is building 4 with public defense and the resource hub. Hub is in green. The blue area is for public defense. We walked the space with Patrick. We've had some upgrades since we've printed this drawing. One of them is he wants this area into 5 offices. There's a existing copy area here where you can walk through. Offices, 3 offices over here where there's 2 large ones. So minor upgrades with him. We walked it through them. He's worked with Nathan and Resource Hub. They understand the space sharing. That's one of the other things is this door here allows for this area to be secure. So there could be a public restroom down here so the Resource Hub can use it. Then there's separate restrooms for staff up there. So we worked with both of those stakeholders in that area. Resource Hub was one of the programs scheduled for Building 6, but it's been relocated back where it's currently at, just growing the space about 50%.
Because building 6 just can't be used for anything.
Well, that's why we have Jason in the audience. He's highly discourages us from using it because of the condition it's in. I mean, it's working, but.
Rick, I'm gonna ask, Rick sent us an analysis on building 6, and Rick, perhaps you would speak to that.
I'd be happy to, Robin. Yeah, Rick Thomas, the project's capital planning manager. I have done a bit of research into the building and just a little bit of background. Building 6 was constructed in 1978. There have been no significant infrastructure upgrades to that building at all, and so as you can tell, it's going on 50 years old. It presently needs to have its roof replaced. There's leaks right now in the building that the facilities group takes care of the best that they can. The air conditioning and heating system in there have not been ever upgraded, and so they're well past their normal 20 to 25 year lifespan. Um, and it's a space that really, to do any sort of other modification to, would cause us to have to do all of the upgrades that Marvin from Mortensen already had mentioned. We would need to completely fire sprinkler the building. We'd have to do all the upgrades for seismic, for our fire alarm system. Have to do upgrades for all of our energy systems, including lighting and whatnot. The assessed value of the building itself is about $1.2 million. And I just did kind of a rough estimate in regards to just simply bringing it up to code without doing any interior changes to what might meet the needs of someone occupying that space. And it's over $1 million just to bring the building itself up to code. So that doesn't include a fresh coat of paint, new carpet, anything else. And so that's really the scenario in regards to building 6. And I know Jason is in the room, and if I know there's ongoing issues that he has with the maintenance just because of how old the building is as well.
Aren't all the buildings pretty much in that condition?
Yes, they are.
So they all just need to be tore down?
I will leave that answer to somebody else. I have my opinions on it, and again, as Robin had indicated before, this project that we're doing is Plan B, and the goal of this is to get us 7 to 10 years of additional time so that we have an opportunity to put together a plan, a long-term plan for facilities that would meet the long-term needs of the county.
But spending $50 million to limp along for 7 years is a tough pill to swallow.
Well, I guess if you do the semi-simple math on it, you are talking $5 to $7 million per year to keep the facilities at least usable for that time period.
How much does it cost to do nothing for 7 years?
Well, I think the issue that we have is if we don't do anything, we do not have space that meets the needs of the county departments that we have.
But that's been the story for the last 20 years, right?
But that's what the board made a commitment to the stakeholders that they would address. That's why we went down the path of Plan B.
This conversation, I just think, is like not addressing the reality, which is that we can't do anything without voter approval, and we cannot control voter approval. So
Right.
you can say that this is $50 million to get us 7 years, but it might get us 17 years. It might get us 27 years because we may have no other choice. We don't have control. We do have no revenue to build a new courthouse, and we have no control over whether voters will authorize additional revenue for that. So I don't like this. I don't like this idea of like, oh, we're spending $5 to $7 million a year to get through 7 years. That's a fantasy. Like that's a fantasy equation right there. I mean, that's just that's the building experts saying that would be in an ideal scenario. How much time more out of these buildings? We've already gotten what? Weren't these buildings supposed to be last like 20 years and then the 70s? So we've already gotten 25 more years out of these buildings than the building experts would say we could have. And so, yes, we are investing a lot of money in buildings that are, the greatest thing, but we don't have any other options, and we may have to get more than 7 years out of these buildings.
Right.
More than 10, more than 15. I don't know when the voters are gonna be ready to increase their property tax enough to build a new courthouse complex. Hopefully soon, I support it, but we have no control over that. And we have to provide facilities for our courts, for our administration, and this is the only option that's on the table, so I mean.
I would say if we put 50 million, they're gonna expect a lot more than 5 or 7 years out of this.
I expect more
This is
than
a
5 or 7 years.
25-year plan.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, I think you're closer to right than 7 years.
I also want to say that, you know, unlike Building 6, which we did not own until recently, there has been maintenance work on these buildings since they were built in the 70s. There've been roofs, there've been HVAC system upgrades, there've been lighting upgrades, unlike Building 6. So it's not fair to say that they are all in that same condition.
Well, they're all kind of just straggling along. We know that building 1 and I don't know which other building, the HVAC system is like hanging on the last thread, right? So, okay, we put aside building 6, but building a new addition to this and deferring, knowing that we're limping along on the actual maintenance of the rest of them, it gets me really nervous because, okay, fine, we're not gonna do building 6, then I would suggest that we use that funding to upgrade our systems because I'm really nervous that, sure, we're gonna be upgrading this space, but all of a sudden, we're gonna be having the same issues. The HVAC's gonna go out. I don't know what other things when they mentioned the maintenance of it, but it was a long list of things that needed to be done to those buildings in terms of just keeping them running. And Building 6 for me, it's okay, fine, we're not, you know, it's too long. But the 3 main buildings, those have their own issues. And I just do not feel comfortable adding in addition to another building, knowing that the infrastructure really is not there.
So with the clerk not moving out and the need to address safety for building 2, this is the best plan that we could go and look and see what we could do with the building without expanding it, but it's, to leave the clerk in that building, which she has said is her top priority, it's my understanding, that she absolutely cannot be separated from the court, even by a courtyard, then we've got to address the security needs of Superior Court somehow, and this was it. And it's, you know, I know that you're concerned about the maintenance, we're not putting on new roof, we're not putting in new HVAC systems in this design. I get the concerns about that, but the top priority in Plan B was to address space needs, and that's what we've done. And our stakeholders.
Well, we'll be lucky if we make it to 5 years with the systems that we have in place right now, let alone 25 years. I mean, we'll be getting that bill pretty soon, and then what?
One of the things that Rick is working on is the long-term facility plan. You know, how do we address these things? That is exactly part of what we're working on right now.
You know, since everybody quit talking there for a minute, I'll poke my head in there. You know, we probably all saw, in the last couple of weeks, an inmate jumped over, I don't know, beat some judge's head on the wall or something. Did everybody see that?
It was a wild video.
On national TV?
It was in Vegas, yeah.
You know, I guess that's bad enough if you're the judge, but if something like that happens to a citizen, a juror, or something like that in a facility. So you also have that whole liability thing that is a thing. But whatever we do as we move forward with the plan, before the voters will vote, they have to have trust in their government. And so whatever we do, I'm not advocating one way or the other. We need to build trust, and Commissioner Fournier has said a couple different times, and I think this comes from experience with his being a mayor, you got to develop a few fun things to get people to be enthused about stuff, maybe. And so where you're talking about some parks and different things that we could do to add to the fun meter, I guess, that don't cost too much. But the bottom line is trust. I can only, you guys have heard me been harping on that for the last 8 years, so, but it is an issue. It's just something we gotta be thinking about for the long term. If we ever are gonna be successful in asking the voters, we were so fortunate this time around on the 0.2% on the law enforcement issue, because our legislative body, different municipalities, defund the police, don't let the police chase the bad guy. And the society feels crime is out of control, so they voted for that. So I'm not saying they trusted us completely, but they did vote for it. It was a pretty good vote. Unfortunately, sometimes things have to get worse. And I'm not saying this, I think you guys have got a real challenge, and I commend you for putting together what you've been able to put together, whether it sells for everybody at this point or not. But I asked you the other day, Tom, if, you know, how we were doing with our users. And I have to say, I'm hearing pretty good things with your relationship with users. So I just throw that out. Bigger fish to fry, more to come. We're not gonna settle it today.
We did study not putting an addition on the building, and it was part of the original DLR report as well, pre-design. Unfortunately, what DLR didn't address in their report and what we discovered is you cannot make all the changes and provide the space needs in the building for Superior Court unless you trigger the 50% rule or you add.
Yeah.
So we added because it's the least cost solution for the space and programmatic needs that we were told to solve for. You could spend $50 million just in Superior Court if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It's the reality of regulatory oversight. That's what you're looking at.
But I hear what you're saying, that the long-term solution needs to start with building goodwill and marketing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just start on the plan early. Can't figure on putting it on the ballot next year.
All right.
Does that cover you
So-
guys' presentation, or
Well, see, like I got it.
I think we're out of time, so appreciate it. Yeah, last questions before we adjourn?
Hey, I do have a suggestion when we do this again. Could you at least have one handout on the larger paper with the configuration of the three main buildings there? So that we can be
Three-dimensional.
looking up here and refer back. You don't have to have all that detail
Yes.
in these smaller ones. And then if you're gonna present with, more pages, and this isn't too bad, but I'm kind of a stickler for page numbers. If you're getting, you know, you got 35 pages, page 7 is whatever, so.
Yeah, I saw.
Good job.
I saw this morning and knew that was a problem.
You knew I'd say something.
Like, I can't refer to the page numbers. I didn't put them on there, so that's my fault.
All right, thanks, everybody. We're adjourned.
Thank you.